Algebra might sound intimidating at first, but think of it as a puzzle game with numbers and letters. Just like how you fit pieces together to complete a picture, algebra helps you fit numbers and variables together to solve problems. It helps us solve problems we face every day. Ever tried figuring out how much your allowance could grow if you save a certain amount each week? Or maybe you've wondered how long it would take to save up for something special? That's algebra in action. It's not just about numbers, it's about understanding relationships and patterns. Algebra is like a secret code that helps us describe relationships between things that change. For example, if you know the speed of a car and the time it travels, you can figure out the distance it covers. We use letters called variables to represent unknown quantities, making it easier to work with numbers that can change. And we use symbols to represent operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These symbols are like the rules of the game, guiding us on how to manipulate the numbers and variables. Once you understand the basics, you can unlock the power of algebra to solve all sorts of problems. From calculating the best deals while shopping to understanding scientific formulas, algebra is everywhere. Think of it like learning a new language. Just as you learn new words and grammar rules, you learn new symbols and rules in algebra. At first it might seem strange, but with practice, you'll be speaking algebra in no time. And once you do, you'll see how powerful and useful it can be in your everyday life. Let's start with the basic tools of algebra: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These operations work with variables just like they do with regular numbers. When adding or subtracting terms with variables, remember you can only combine like terms. Terms that have the same variable and exponent. Think of it like organizing your closet. You wouldn't put your shoes with your shirts, right? Multiplication and division follow similar rules. When multiplying variables, you add their exponents. When dividing, you subtract the exponents. A linear equation is like a balancing act. Imagine you're on a seesaw trying to keep it perfectly level. The equal sign is the center point, the fulcrum of our seesaw. Our goal is to keep both sides of the equation balanced while isolating the variable. Imagine a seesaw with weights on both sides. To keep it balanced, whatever we do to one side we have to do to the other. This is the fundamental rule of equations. The same goes for solving equations. Whether we add, subtract, multiply, or divide, we must apply the operation to both sides. We can add, subtract, multiply, or divide both sides by the same number to isolate the variable and find its value. This is how we solve for the unknown. For example, let's solve the equation x plus 5 equals 10. This is a simple, linear equation. To get x by itself, we subtract 5 from both sides. This step is crucial to isolate the variable. This gives us x equals 5. Voila! We've successfully balanced our equation and found the value of x. Tackling quadratic equations, a step up. These equations are a fundamental part of algebra and are essential for understanding more advanced math concepts. Quadratic equations involve a variable raised to the power of 2, like x squared. This means that the highest exponent of the variable is 2, making the equation a bit more complex than linear equations. They might seem a bit trickier, but don't worry, we've got this. With the right approach and practice, solving these equations can become manageable and even enjoyable. One common way to solve quadratic equations is by factoring. Factoring involves breaking down the equation into simpler parts that can be multiplied together to get the original equation. Factoring is like finding the missing pieces of a puzzle. Each piece fits perfectly to form a complete picture, just like the factors of a quadratic equation. We need to find two numbers that multiply to give us the constant term and add up to the coefficient of the x term. This method can be very effective for simpler quadratic equations. Another method is using the quadratic formula, a handy tool that always gives us the solution or solutions for x. This formula works for any quadratic equation, no matter how complex. It might seem intimidating at first, but with practice, it becomes second nature. The more you work with quadratic equations, the more comfortable you'll become in solving them. Algebra in action, real-life applications. Algebra is everywhere. We use it to calculate distances, speeds, and time. Businesses use algebra to track profits and losses. Architects use it to design buildings, and engineers use it to build bridges. Let's say you're planning a road trip. You know the distance and your average speed. By using algebra, you can figure out how long the drive will take. Pretty cool, right? So there you have it. Algebra might seem challenging at first, but remember, practice makes perfect. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're valuable learning opportunities. Embrace the challenge, and soon you'll be amazed by how much you can achieve with the power of algebra.